Sometimes I wonder if there are aliens out there, and let's be honest, statistically, there are, what their zodiac is like. Because it would just be mind-boggling to me if it was damn near the exact same thing. Here's what I know about astrology before we went into this episode. Number one, I am an Aries. Number two, end of list. But hey, that's what the show is all about, learning and growing. And I had astrologers Stillman and Courtney O'Reilly on to teach me a thing or two about the stars and how we're all made of stardust. And also, I am fire? I'm like my own Avatar episode. Hell yeah.
You may love a thing that I can't stand. Spiders, tofu, watching Homeland. Our interests are all varying. It's fun to be contrarian. But I'll try things that you all love to see if I can rise above. But maybe there's a chance that I just won't. So in that case, don't mind if I don't.
Welcome to Don't Mind If I Don't. Hey, I'm your host, Aaron Gold. This is the show where I don't like things, and fans and experts come on and show me why I'm wrong so I can expand my horizons and be a bit more of a well-rounded person. And hopefully that'll happen today as we dive into astrology, a science that I think it's a science. Anyway, we've got two lovely astrologists joining us today.
No. It's astrologers.
Mm-hmm. Astrologers?
Yes.
Astrologists tells me that's wrong. That's not, we don't refer to that as
well,
that.
I already don't know a lot about this, so hopefully
Well,
we
now
can
I'll
correct this.
set you off. You'll start on the right foot. It's
We will.
astrologers.
Astrologers. So first up is the a practicing idiosyncratic astrologer for over 50 years. Clark Stillman is here.
I don't like the way you emphasized 50. I mean, it's like the emphasis was on the
wrong syllable.
Yeah. Right.
All right. How about I'll try that again. Practicing idiosyncratic astrologer for over 50 years.
Since the middle of the last century would probably be less. It's more poetic to say the middle of the last century.
Your experience. That's the big takeaway here.
Okay.
Also joining us, Brooklyn-based astrologer for Maha Rose and Myths of Creation, who works closely with Susan Miller, Courtney O'Reilly.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, Courtney. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. I want to say this right off the bat. If you don't believe in astrology or whatever, this episode is not about proving whether or not astrology is real or not. I don't really care. I think that that's not good radio, and I think you can do your own research into that. This is purely about getting me excited for it, getting me into it, making me a fan of it. Much like we did with the psychics episode, it wasn't about proving whether or not psychics were real. It was just about, can I enjoy this? Everything on this show comes through on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 is my ambivalence, 10 being blood-curdling hatred. Astrology clocks in at a 3.
Oh,
but
all right.
certain people who are way too into it can bring it up to a 6. So far, like my version of way too into that is like if someone finds out I'm an Aries, they go like, "Oh, you're an Aries." Pfft, figures. That's too much for me. But why do you guys love astrology?
Why do I love astrology? Well, for me personally, I knew about astrology. I think most of us know the extent of our sun sign, which is what you were talking about. Mm-hmm. When someone meets you and they're like, oh, what sign are you? That's your sun sign. But we all have all of the planets manifesting within our lives, not just the sun. And that's why you can meet another Aries that is totally different than you. Because they have a different rising sign, which means they have a different perspective on the world, for example. And that's just a small piece. So when you're reading horoscopes, let's say, what the astrologer is doing is writing to your sun sign. So they're taking
my main one.
Yeah, so they're taking the sign that the sun was in when you were born and turning the wheel, which I know you listening can't see this, but
I'll be posting the
oh, you will?
sun chart
that's great.
that
That's
you guys
awesome.
made for me.
That's awesome. Yeah, so it looks like it's a map of the sky at the moment you were born. That's your natal chart. It's like it's a circle. divvied up into 12 little pizza pie pieces. And what an astrologer is doing when they write horoscopes is turning the zodiac belt to your sign, so Aries for you, so that it's on Earth's horizon. So it's your perspective of the current weather, basically, the current planetary movements, and writing specifically to that. But you can see, Aaron, I have your chart up, and so you can see all these little...
I'm looking at it, but I don't know what I'm seeing. It looks like it's written in Japanese.
Right, it's like translating another language. That's how I think of it. I'm a translator. Okay. So all of the glyphs represent the planets and the signs, and so when we're looking at your chart, we're dissecting and translating where everything was, what they were up to, and how that affects the patterns of your life. So when you're reading horoscopes, you're just reading such a tiny little piece of that without diving into the rest of it. It's so much more complex and layered. But it's an overview. An astrologer couldn't write to every person's chart is completely unique, even twins, because everything's in constant motion. So your chart is just a snapshot, a moment in time. And so when you read horoscopes, they'll resonate sometimes because it's very generalized. And then other times you'll be like, what the F?
And by the way, I should say, if you want to swear, you totally can here.
Oh, good.
So
that's a really long roundabout way of starting to kind of explain how to get into the more nuanced layers of what astrology is. But the reason I love it, I started by saying all of that because there are so many little pieces to look at and examine. It's a tool to understand yourself better and to understand what's happening around you better. We're not telling you the future. Astrologers aren't psychic. You can meet an astrologer who is also psychic, but we're looking at the planetary placements based on calculations from NASA, and then we're interpreting that. So we all have free will. So it's basically like I'm telling you it's going to rain. You could bring an umbrella or not. If you don't, it's going to suck more. And that's really what it is. To me, it's a tool to plan.
Okay. Yeah. I like that approach. Clark, how about you?
I don't know. How do I follow that?
Whimsically?
Fair. No fair.
Oh, no? Come on. You've got so many years on me.
My astrology is... The way I do it is I remember that a high school experiment we had with magnets and iron filings. You remember that in high school? Maybe it was grade school.
When we went to high school together?
You put iron filings on a piece of paper and you put a magnet underneath it, you move it, and the iron filings work. They move. Now, why does that happen?
Magnets, right.
So there is a magnetic field that we all live in. In fact, the entire universe is electricity, is vibration and motion. It's magnetic fields everywhere. So we're constantly in magnetic fields. So each planet creates a magnetic field. And you can see that, you can see scientific photographs of that. So what happens is that at the time of birth, there is in a certain alignment of planets in relation to the planet Earth. And everything on the planet Earth is affected by those magnetic fields. So the moon is one place and the tide goes up. The moon is someplace else, the tide goes down. Magnetic field.
Yeah, but how does that relate to me as a person?
I will tell you.
Okay.
No impatience, Aries.
Up to a 7 now.
So what happens is when the body enters the physical world from inside this protected cocoon inside the mother.
What?
It is imprinted by all of those different magnetic fields. Now, because human beings are by and large mechanical, they don't realize that whatever they do is actually being done by these magnetic fields.
So are you debating the free will that Courtney said I had? Because Courtney said I had some.
You do. But you have to be conscious to use your free will. You can't be a puppet being moved around on the paper like the iron filings. You have to know that there are things running through your system that you're not aware of and are not necessarily connecting with. Oh. This is why people practice meditation. This is why people went to Est and all those things. They wanted to get in touch with themselves. But by and large, most human beings are not in touch with themselves. I'm not in touch with myself. I know that because my wife tells me. So I'm fully aware of the fact that I'm not in touch with myself because I have somebody who, knows better. So there it is. There's the secret. Free will requires consciousness.
Well, I think
self-awareness of what's going on in the subconscious, not pulling the trigger on the anger that's created by somebody cutting you off, knowing that that thing is rising in your mind.
Well, I think I've got, I mean, I feel like it's the same thing with being crazy. Like if you say like, I know I'm not crazy. Well, the only people that aren't crazy are the people that question it. So I think I have self-awareness. I think I'm pretty self-aware, but I mean, if I'm not, how would I know?
Exactly.
So
that's the problem. That's the problem. And the ego is the ego.
I'm scratching my head literally and figuratively right now.
Exactly, because the level of awareness in human beings, or myself, I'll take myself. I do believe I'm a human being, so I can point to myself and say, Hugh.
Yeah.
So usually when I point to myself, I point to my body, but that's not who I am. That's the car I drive.
That I would agree with. Okay, so I am a little...
So this is controlled by things...
You're making a visual cue, which does not translate to podcasts.
Okay, so everybody close your eyes.
Okay, let's go on a journey.
I'm touching my body. In a not a bad place.
Okay, good. I was going to ask you to specify where.
I'm touching my head.
Okay.
Now, the head is a physical thing, but as you well know, you're not physical. Everybody knows that they're not their body, except when they don't know they're not their body, because everybody reacts to what happens to the body. They're pushed around by it. It's cold. I got to put on a jacket. But there are places where people are conscious enough that when it's cold, they don't feel the cold. I mean, they feel the cold, but they don't let it
affect them.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh, I do consider myself, I hesitate to say somewhat spiritual just because I don't know of a better word for it. Mm-hmm. Like, I think that my I don't say beliefs, but my idea of the way things are in the universe, I think that there is some sort of force that connects all of us. I think that could very well be God. I don't think God like plays favorites with creations. I think God is just like, I love it all. And we're like, cool. And I think that when we die, our spirits go right back into that thing. That could be God. Mm-hmm. That's the loose idea of
that's pretty good.
My beliefs.
That's pretty good because there is only matter in manifestation, but there's the energy behind that matter. And that's really what we are. Mm-hmm. So
I believe that my spirit is driving my body.
Right.
But it's also kind of living in there, like not as a car, but like as an RV, and rarely leaves the house.
Oh, that's the way it is.
Okay.
So the point that I think I'm trying to make is that because the body is moved by these energies, and because we're not really attuned to how subtle these energies are, we really don't know what's moving us. We really don't know what causes something to rise in our mind or our emotions.
So let me ask you guys this. Why astrology and not just pulling out of
something out of your ass?
Yeah, like some religion or
because religion requires a hierarchy of belief. Astrology just requires your ability to use and understand metaphor and poetry.
Yeah, that's right. Astrology it's not a religious belief. It's
right.
a tool.
It's a tool.
It's a tool. It's happening. You can tap into it or not.
Would you say that it's a science?
No.
Not exactly, no.
Okay.
There's an element. I mean, astrology is math. So when we're looking at the planetary placements, there are things called aspects, which are the way the planets relate to one another. They're like conversations that the planets are having with one another, right? Let's say Mercury is conjunct Venus, which, is like the two are holding hands in the sky. They're sitting right next to each other. The two will always work together. So the way you communicate, Mercury, will always be colored by Venus, which is the ruler of love and beauty and all the things that, we find joy in the world. So the way that you communicate, if Venus is conjunct Mercury, there's an element of grace. There's, you want people to get along. You want things to be fair. And that comes through in your communication. So, I mean, you're looking at... Right, it's math. So they're angles to one another. Conjunct means they're sitting at the exact same place in the sky. If they're making a 90-degree angle to one another, that's a square. There's some kind of internalized tension happening there. So there's math involved too. There's an element of science, but I wouldn't say it's a strict science because, as Clark was saying, we don't know. We don't know exactly, but for thousands and thousands of years, people have looked to the sky for answers or hope or a better understanding of what's happening in the world. They would notice that when, this planet got to this place in the sky was a good time to plant this crop. That's the farmer's almanac.
Is this... okay, so maybe you guys can finally answer a question I have had for a long time. What does Mercury in retrograde mean?
Okay, it just means that there's no such thing as real retrograde. That is to say,
Fuck me. What?
Planets don't go backwards, okay?
It appears
There's
to
an
be
appearance.
going
Let's
in
start with
backward
what does
motion.
retrograde mean?
It means from the planet Earth in relation to Mercury, at a certain time, it looks like it's going backwards because you're looking at it from the Earth at a certain angle.
Mm-hmm.
So the whole terminology for Mercury is in retrograde is flawed.
No,
God damn it.
no, it's not flawed. People's understanding of the
Yeah.
terminology is flawed.
Okay, well, fix me in the brain. What? I'm getting so frustrated, but I want to get this.
Yeah, I think people get freaked out about the retrogrades. Mercury goes retrograde about 3 times a year. It's really not a big deal. I mean, in New York, I think we freak out maybe even more because we're used to moving at a very fast pace here. Mercury rules communications. And so when it appears to go in backwards motion, retrograde, the planet, it slows down. So it's not moving at its normal
The
clip.
energy the magnetic field, if you will,
I won't, but go on.
you have no choice.
Oh, damn it. Wow, I've been countered.
Yes, you're subject to this. What happens is if you think of retrograde as like revise,
Okay, so another
Yeah.
pass at.
recollect,
Yeah.
Yeah, you're slowing down,
Remember.
reviewing, going over. That's why, like, for
Responding,
example,
replying.
if Mercury rules communications, then communication's slow. That's why we have technology snafus, or you send that text to the wrong person. You're like, fuck, I didn't mean to do that. Why did I do that? It's because you're supposed to be slowing down. And when you try to force speeding up, we're humans. We need time and space to slow down, review, and then we go back and we start again.
think regeneration.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, so if Mercury is in retrograde,
Good time to slow down, recollect
and
yourself,
rejuvenate.
rejuvenate. Yes,
It's a re-time.
Yes.
it's a re-time, and it's not a bad time.
Okay.
It's more restful. It's more introspective. But if you're not living consciously, that's frustrating, right? You're like, why are we slowing down?
Yeah, you
I
get
want to
grumpy.
do this thing. It's holding me back. But it's because it's the natural rhythm of, it's our natural rhythms that we, now that we're moving into the age of technology and all of this, it's like, it's harder for us to slow down and just be okay with the slowing down.
I like that. That's okay. I'm pretty sure I got about 60% of what you guys said. I think this is going to take a lot of repetition.
Yes.
Repetition,
Sure.
if you will, until this all really clicks into my brain space. I think my biggest issue with astrology is the idea that someone thinks they can know me completely before they know me.
No astrologer would say that.
Mm-mm.
No astrologer
Really?
would say, no astrologer. Astrologer will look at chart and say, a lot of energy happening in this chart. Let's have a conversation and see how that energy is manifesting. I would ask, I wouldn't tell.
Well, exactly, because you don't know, we're all beings outside of our bodies, right? We've kind of dropped into these bodies. We're here on Earth School. We're learning stuff. We're evolving. We're doing all of this.
Earth
and
School,
so
that's great.
you don't know, you can see what they're working with. Astrology, my mentor, Rebecca Gordon, and I love this, I say it all the time. She says that astrology is really the study of compassion. Because when you see what someone's working with, you see the challenges and the things they're going through, it's hard not to feel compassionate. Once you see the whole, it's just a zoomed out picture of what the person's working with, but you're stepping into this, right? These are the lessons you came to learn and grow through here on Earth School, but you're bigger than that. So depending on where your actual being outside of this body is and its evolution, you may handle what's going on in this chart in a very different way because you have free will, right? So it's much more nuanced than most people realize.
Yeah, it's hard for me to grasp this. So let's dive into my chart and see if we can learn via doing.
Oh, look at this chart. Oh, poor baby.
Fuck you.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh, he's patting me, and now we're up to an 8.
Yeah, I mean, so we're looking at Aaron's chart. You said you're going to share this?
Yeah, I'm gonna post this with the episode
so
on
pull
Instagram
up his
and
chart
Twitter.
as you listen, follow along. I like to start by looking at where the sun, the moon, and what the rising sign are to start. They're the 3 main components of personality from this perspective. And so you know that you have the sun in Aries. That's like what everyone knows, right?
I know I'm an Aries.
And it's funny. I say it's funny because so the sun is the biggest luminary in our solar system, right? It's like shining light. And so for you, what it represents is your ego, how you want to shine, what you want to do in the world, the way that you do it. And so it's funny that everyone knows their sun sign, right? It's like, hey, where's your ego working? You know, like we're so egocentric that's all anyone really talks about mainstream wise anyway. And then the moon is the other luminary. So it reflects the sun's light. And it's the subtler sides of ourselves. It's our emotional body, our needs, what we need to feel cared for, how we care for others. And you have your moon was in Sagittarius when you were born. So the moon moves pretty quickly. It changes sign about every 2.5 days. And when you were born, it was right in the middle of its transition through Sag. So now you've got 2 fire signs. So you're really fiery.
I like to think that I have some Latin flair.
Yeah. Yeah, and your rising sign is Sagittarius.
Person ever.
Your rising sign is Sagittarius too. So the rising sign is it's not a planet, it's a point, a mathematical point in the sky. It's Earth's horizon. So it's the sign that was coming up when you came in, and now your perceptions are colored by the qualities of that sign. So because you have the moon and the rising sign in Sagittarius, you're what's called a double Sagittarius. You have 2 of the main 3 in the same sign. So
wait, I'm a double Sagittarius even though I'm an Aries?
Yep. So you're an Aries sun, and then the moon is in Sagittarius, and the rising sign is Sagittarius. So you have 2 out of 3, right? So double Sag.
So I'm more Sagittarius than I am Aries?
In some ways. But the way that you want to shine and be recognized in the world is through the lens of Aries.
Okay.
Yeah, the way you integrate your capabilities and your essences and whatever you want to call it is in an Aryan way.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, don't say that.
Well, unfortunately, the term has gotten a pretty bad rap.
Yeah.
And it's not deserved because the real Aryans invented a religion called Advaita. It's not really a religion. It's a way of looking at the universe, which means Advaita means not duality. So
everything is one.
Everything, yes. The entire
all is one and one is all. I watch Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
Okay.
So, yeah, I didn't think anybody in this room would get that. That's fine. Let's move on.
But the entire metaphysical underpinning of the Hindu tradition is non-duality, which is a very interesting point of view because those people who are aware of themselves and who achieve what we like to refer to as cosmic consciousness, whatever, don't see the difference between you, me, and her. They see the bodies, but when they look, they see the same spirit.
So the enlightened would see us
as one.
Emotionally as one.
Right. Each one of us experiencing differently because we have different receptors, or if you will, planets and stuff like that, and we react differently. But there is only unity. But be that as it may, I digress.
Yeah, let's definitely
come back.
digress.
Let's come back to the fact that you're a fire sign through and through. You don't give a shit.
You have a lot of fire in your chart. So your main
Burn
three,
things. Move fast.
you move fast.
Break and burn things.
Yeah, and when I was looking at your chart when you so we just got Aaron's chart and I was taking a look before we came on, and I kind of like laughed to myself because Sagittarius, you have so much Sagittarius, right? With the moon and the rising there, it's how you see things, it's how you emotionally process things. And we're on a show where he questions everything. And he brings people on to teach him, and so he can learn and share.
The center of it.
Clark, you are
Because
off
he's
mic.
an Aries.
He's the center of it because his sun is in the 5th house, which is Leo.
Yeah.
And Leo rules the 9th house, which is the Sagittarius
Right.
house. So
Higher learning.
yeah, but because he comes on like hail fellow well met, he is still the center of the activity. That old Leo. So, it's fine.
Yeah, I think you guys just said I'm self-absorbed, but I know it, so it's
Yes,
okay.
It's okay to be self-absorbed.
Okay.
Right? Just don't absorb everybody else.
I don't know how not to. I'm a son.
Exactly. So you're very, what's so good about the way you handle your energy is that you enjoy it. You enjoy your energy.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't.
He said sheepishly.
A lot of people don't enjoy their energy because it sometimes is overpowering even for themselves.
Well, I will say there are times when I annoy myself, but like for the most part, I do view my existence as, I view everyone's purpose on Earth to have as much fun as possible while helping or at least not hurting as many people as possible.
Do no harm.
Do no harm or minimize harm while enjoying yourself.
Right. So, I look at
The purpose of life is having fun
right.
without being a dick. That's my view.
Totally sun in the 5th. The 5th house rules like the things that we do for sheer enjoyment or creative self-expression, and that's where your ego's shining, right? Like that's what you want to do. You're like, how do we make it fun? And I want to be a pioneer of fun because it's Aries, pioneering. I'm the leader. I'm going to start this. I'm going to make it happen. Let's invite more fun in. And the Sagittarius rising and the moon is, it rules higher philosophy and learning and religion and things. So it's like, I call them the seekers of the zodiac. It's the perpetual learner.
The other thing.
Oh, I like that a lot.
Yeah, Sagittarius.
And that's so far that does feel accurate.
Well, here's another piece of accuracy.
Okay.
At this point, at the point you were manifested, practically every planet was below the horizon, which is an interesting thing. Mm-hmm. And you've been working very diligently to get in touch with those things which are out of view in yourself.
So what does that mean to a layman?
What that means to a layman is you've been working very hard to get in touch with what you've got. And you've been working very hard to make it happen. The reason I say working very hard is because Pluto, the planet of transformation and regeneration.
And cartoon dogs.
Cartoon dogs. And that's rising. That's soon going to be at the midheaven in your chart. If you just visualize your chart as actually in motion, at some point, that planet would reach the midheaven, the top of your chart. So that's rising, and that's a very strong place for Pluto to be, even though it's buried in the 12th house.
Cool. What the fuck did you just say? Because like for the last 5...
If you're looking at the wheel...
My translator is going to...
Yeah, please.
So if you're looking at the wheel, what he's saying is, see how you can cut it in half top to bottom or half left to right. So what he's saying is the bottom half of your chart, see all the glyphs are there?
It seems like most of it is below it.
There.
Yeah.
So the bottom half of the chart is more internalized. It's the introspective. It's, we turn inward. The top of the chart, it's above the horizon. It's who we are outwardly. It's very extroverted. And so most of your planets are on the bottom half. And so that's what he was talking about.
Okay. Well, most would including myself, would characterize me as more of an extrovert than an introvert.
It's all that fire.
It's all
Because
that
fire
moon.
is
But
naturally
that
out,
chart says I'm an
outward motion.
in guy.
No, that the chart says is that much of your energy is internalized. Much of your capabilities are cooking below the surface. Your manifestation, what people get, is how that energy comes out of you. And it comes out of you is projected through your rising sign, which is Sagittarius, which is a very fiery, outgoing sign.
Mm-hmm.
So it's essentially like, and your moon is in Sagittarius. So essentially what happens is
Your moon's in Sagittarius.
your moon's in Sagittarius.
Shit,
And
you got me.
whatever happens in all those other planets is amplified coming through the rising sign. So it's given another push. So whatever is back here is going to come out with a lot of energy.
So we're saying, tell me if I'm wrong here.
You're wrong.
Fuck. Well, that was quick. So I've got a lot of stuff always going on inside of me, in my brain, in my heart. I'm always going
Sure.
internally, and it spurts out like a fire, like it just kind of comes out of me, and it's apparent that there's always something going on inside of me. I'm rarely ever tranquil.
Well, if you admit that in public, that's good.
Yeah, I mean, like that's what this whole podcast is about me growing as a person. So
Sagittarius rising.
fuck. Well, I don't know what that means.
Well, you have to learn about tranquility now.
Do I have to?
Well, if you want to be a great Sagittarius, Aries, moon in Sagittarius rising, you have to learn about tranquility.
I don't know about all that. I just want to be a good person.
Well, tranquility helps.
Sure.
Yeah, so all of the planets and the signs relate to an element, right? There's earth, air, water, fire. And you, in the main three that we're talking about, right, we're isolating. We're looking at the sun, the moon, and the rising. They're all in fire. But the program I use gives me a quick breakdown of the elements where everything is, right? So I see that you have 7 planetary beings in fire. So there's a lot more fire elsewhere going on. And then you have only one planetary being, and it's your north node, so it's not even a planet. It's the axis of the moon in water, and water is emotion. So the fire is spirited, right? It's inspiring. It's like, whoa, never stops. But the water is the emotional side of yourself. So to help balance some of the fire, you invite water in. You invite someone like me, who's a Pisces rising, onto your show, water. Let's have this watery person talk to me about shit I don't understand. You know, like you seek it out because you don't naturally have a lot of it. So you need to source it from somewhere else. Does that make sense?
Is that saying like I'm not a very emotional person?
No. You are an emotional person.
Fuck, man.
But your
Jesus.
processing is through the lens of spirit and learning and go, rather than
So I don't process something emotionally as much as I break it down in other ways.
you might theorize more about how you feel than actually feel the feeling.
Oh, that is me. Yeah, that's pretty. Yeah, okay. Yeah, because it's hard for someone to intentionally get me mad.
Mm-hmm.
Want us to try?
You can, yeah, if you can try. But if I notice that someone is trying to irritate me or to get me mad on purpose, then part of me will be like, oh, you're trying to outmaneuver me. Oh, I see your game now. And like my anger will dissipate because I can see that they're trying to affect me, and that acknowledging that makes me feel like I've got power in the situation. Mm-hmm. So is that like a Sagittarius way of thinking? I don't know.
To an extent, the fire think of the element of fire, right? It burns. So if something, stings you, you might get really mad, and then it just fizzles away. It just burns away. Mm. Whereas water is like fluid. It picks everything up. It turns it around. It, dwells on it. The feeling, it's just a different way of processing.
And what happens is that you don't ruminate.
Mm-hmm.
You don't ruminate.
I ruminate a lot.
No, you think. Rumination involves mulling.
I'm going to flip this goddamn table with all of my equipment on it.
Right. There's a difference between thinking and ruminating.
Please illuminate me.
Ruminate? That's very good. We can do poetry.
We're at a 9.
Rumination is playing the feeling as well as the idea over and over. Since the feeling is only mostly in your theoretical and mental state, your idea of the feeling is theoretical. It's not actual. Okay? There's an emotional component of intuitive sensitivity and personal connection that is missing. And you get that from water. So you probably have a lot of friends who have, even though they're up and trendy and everything, they probably have water prominent in their charts. It's one way or another because you're seeking water. You need that.
Are you saying I'm thirsty?
You're thirsting for a very deep connection. You have all the connections you need for the mind and the intellect and the spirit, but you're seeking that emotional connection, that emotional realm that needs expansion.
Yeah,
and you need to be watered, or else you'll dry out.
This is the most bizarre conversation I've had all week.
Wait, we've just gotten started.
Oh,
I'm sure
boy.
we could do a lot better.
Does this tie at all with like the Myers-Briggs personality type? Because in that I'm an ENFJ.
What's that?
Oh man, you asked the wrong person.
Well, then stop.
Extroverted.
I always forget.
Yeah, I'm going to take
I
my
just
phone
did
off airplane
mine
mode and
again.
check. ENFJ.
That's me too.
Hey.
Hey, so
All right, so it's an abbreviation used in publications of the Myers-Briggs. It means extroversion, intuition, feeling, and judgment. So I guess this has no bearing on this.
I mean, it's not astrology, but everything is related to everything else. So this is just one lens to look at things through. There are a million others. Religion is one. Your schooling is one. You know, there's thousands of lenses. This is just one lens.
Think of it as a fly's eye.
What?
Have you ever seen a picture of a fly's eye?
How they have all those different little
Lenses.
panels and stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just one of those.
That's why most people are crazy. I'm crazy.
I mean, I feel like I'm going crazy slowly.
Well,
Okay, well, let's dive more into my chart.
Sure.
okay, so
What can we learn about me?
Well, we talked about the sun, moon, and rising. So that's a good place to start. It's just like a little bite-sized piece. But if you, so here, let me
What program
layer.
are you using, by the way?
This is Time Passages. I just like the way that it looks visually, but there are others. Do you use Solar Fire?
I use SolarFire. I use Astro. What's the other one called?
There's lots of different
I've
programs.
got a bunch of them. They're all so much fun.
But what I did
I play
is,
an Ibanez myself.
So what I did is layer where everything is now on top of your natal chart. So we're looking at Erin's chart. It's in the center of the wheel, and I've layered where everything is now right on top of it. And so what this shows us is where everything is now in relation to where things were the moment he was born. And so as the planets move around your chart, they touch and highlight, activate, if you will, certain parts of your chart. And so you're in an interesting period, and this might be interesting because I think a lot of people are starting to become aware of this terminology, but Saturn return, your and yours. So
What does that mean?
What
does that mean?
it just means that Saturn, in current motion, has returned to the exact same place in the sky it was when you were born. It returned to the same place in the sky as it was when you were born. So what this means for you and for anyone else going through their Saturn return, it's essentially astrology's initiation into adulthood. Saturn rules where maybe we feel an innate fear. He's kind of like the teacher of the chart, right? He's like Balanchine. He comes in, he's like, higher, tighter, spin faster. You know, he's like, he gives you homework.
What kind of teachers did you have?
Well, I grew up taking ballet, so that
there it is.
that
There
reference
it
for
is.
me is like clicks for me.
She's a Pisces. Pisces rules the feet and dance.
Mm-hmm.
Ba-dum-bum-bum.
True. It's all true. So it's your initiation into adulthood from this perspective. It's a period in your life where you're examining the foundations that you've built up until this point, and you're seeing if we're going to continue on the next 28, 29-year cycle, carrying on that way, if there's anything in the foundation that needs to be patched up or fixed now, because you're laying the groundwork to build the next phase of your life.
Does this tie to the fact that my 30th birthday is a couple weeks away?
Yeah, sure, it does.
Mm-hmm. This is the period of the life where Saturn returns for the first time.
So what Saturn is sometimes referred to is, besides the great teacher and the timekeeper, in the metaphysical lore and Hermetic lore, he creates the ring pass not. That is to say, the trial, the lesson that has to be learned. And if it's not learned, then you have to repeat it. So you don't get to go to the next stage of the development. It's like not being left back so much as it's you get a do-over. You get a mulligan.
So I'm doing over the last...
As you grow, and Saturn says, fine, move on to the next set of challenges, then fine. But if you haven't passed something from the first set of challenges, you'll find yourself repeating some things.
Repeating mistakes until I've learned them.
Repeating approaches until you've honed them to operate better. There are no mistakes, ever. There is no such thing as a mistake. A mistake implies there's something that had to be done a certain way. And nothing is done a certain way. Everything is done a way that works or doesn't work.
I don't know if it's the post-concussion syndrome, but my brain is hurting right now.
Good. Saturn just is the teacher. If you don't learn the lesson, he wants you to learn it again. Not because he wants to punish you, because he doesn't. He wants you to succeed and be successful.
And this isn't like a specific lesson that I'm told. This is just lesson in general.
Well, you can look to the sign that he's in and the placement. So for you have Saturn in the first house and Capricorn. Saturn just moved into Capricorn. And once you start to get into the mid to outer planets, they move much more slowly than the inner planets. So Saturn is going to be in this sign for, 3 years until 2020. So this 3-year period for you is Saturn in the first house. So it's examining who you've built yourself up to be, how you present yourself to the world. Am I doing what it's checking in with yourself, your kind of core identity, how you're putting yourself out there, and seeing if it's like, it's like maturity. You're like, okay, well, I can't do that anymore because that's not being received well. I'm never going to be seen as an authority, Saturn, if I continue on this way. It's those kinds of lessons.
So the other lesson here is that if you look at the configuration of Saturn is flanked on one side by Uranus and on the other side by Neptune. It's very interesting.
You just pronounce it Uranus?
Not your anus, your honest.
Now I just feel ashamed. Go on.
So now this configuration, grouping of planets, is very interesting because the vibrations of each one of these planets is slightly different and focused in a different way. Mm-hmm. And Saturn is in the middle of them and connecting to both of them. And so I like to think of Saturn as a purifier in many ways. Saturn tends to clear things up. Right? Right? So if you have very cloudy water, if you are tranquil, everything that's moving around in the water will settle out and the water will become clear again. But you have to bring stability to yourself through slowing down.
So what you guys are saying to me is I need to take more time to be tranquil, to meditate maybe.
Maybe that would be a good thing, because getting in touch with higher emotional energy is what helps people in creativity, in understanding themselves and others, in connecting with the universe in a better way. The other thing is that Saturn is in between Neptune and Uranus, and then Uranus is these inspiration of lightning, flashes of brilliance. What you need to do is stabilize that so that you don't just have flashes in the pan, but you have flashes.
But I'm consistently building or growing whatever I am working
right.
on.
When you have a realization, it's very easy for it to be lost because it just goes by really quickly.
And I have a terrible memory.
But if you stabilize everything, if you learn to be tranquil, literally tranquil internally, everything will remain clear longer.
Okay, well, is there anything in my chart that will guide me in how to be more tranquil?
Yes, Saturn.
Well, the
Is
Saturn
there a
return
step-by-step
is gonna...
process for me to do a thing?
So what we're looking at, I don't know if you can see from this far away, but in the little first little pie piece, if you're looking from the left side of the chart, furthest left, going down and up around counterclockwise.
The 9 o'clock position.
Yep. So Saturn's here. This is what we're talking about, the little brown icon here. And then right next to it is Uranus, this little red icon. And you can see Uranus is at 1 degree of Capricorn. Saturn's at 2 degrees of Capricorn. The zodiac belt works on a degree system with each sign accounting for 30 degrees. 30 times 12 is 360. And so they're very close together. They're 1 degree apart. So the alchemy of the two planets will always be working together. And the reason this is so interesting for you is that naturally Saturn and Uranus's energies are sort of at odds. Saturn follows the rules. There's a structure. We have, there are things in place that we follow. It's rule abiding. And Uranus obliterates that. It's the rebel archetype. It's like, nope, we're not following the status quo. We're not doing things this way. It's future thinking. It's future oriented. So it's always kind of 2 steps ahead, where Saturn's like, no, we have a tradition set in place. And so for you, it's learning to integrate the two, right?
So would you say that I play by one rule, no rules?
I love that, yeah.
Okay.
And now that you're having your Saturn return, you're learning to refine that. It's like, okay, I can maybe be pretty impulsive, but I want to actually build something with that. I have good ideas. And so now it's like what Clark was saying, it's learning to stabilize those, ground those, and not be so flash in the pan maybe, now that you're entering kind of the more adult phase of your life.
Think of Saturn as the one who knows how to build a scaffold. Right?
Yeah, Saturn rules the structures of it rules our skeleton in our body. Right. It's the bones of this building.
So without a scaffold, the
building crumbles.
Mm-hmm.
You can't build the building. You have to start at the bottom, obviously. But as you go higher, you need a scaffold to help you on the outside as well as on the inside. So Saturn, ruling the bone structure, gives you something upon which to hang stuff. Mm-hmm. Sinew, muscles, and through which you can then put veins and for blood and all that stuff. So Saturn's import then becomes really, really obvious. Without a structure, nothing gets done. Mm-hmm. Without discipline, measure twice, cut once, nothing gets done.
Right. It's not the most fun, but it's maybe the most necessary because nothing can be built without it.
And that's what I'm learning now.
About yourself.
About yourself, because your whole, in your first 30, 28 point something years, whatever, Saturn has moved, there are 4 points that are traditionally looked at as critical in development, critical in the sense that important. There's the 90-degree aspect where Saturn moves 90 degrees from where it was born. So it's Capricorn, Aquarius, Pisces. So it moves to Aries. So
around when you were 7.
7 or 8, that's an important part. The Saturn is, something must have happened in your life at that point. Then it moved to the opposition, 180 degrees.
Around 14 years old.
Something else happened in your life.
But isn't that the case for everybody?
Yes, that's what Saturn does. It times everybody.
Cycles.
It's one of the cycles.
So every 28 to 30 years, depending on where he is in his orb, because it's not perfectly circular, he's hitting those points around 7, 14.
21, 28. Yeah, 8, 16, 24. So what happens is that these are markers in the person's development that can, astrologer can sit down and talk to you about what was going on in your life in those years, whether somebody died, did you break a leg, did you, whatever, all sorts of things. And then they can see what Saturn was doing, and they could point out to you, well, at that point, Saturn was there and this is what happened. Not predict it, but be able to explain it retrospect. Right? So Saturn is...
My brain is leaking out my ears.
Good. That means there's more space for new brain.
That was horrifying.
It's a lot of information.
It's a lot, and it's overwhelming. Like it almost feels like I'm back in class in college or whatever, just studying and going like, when am I ever going to need this? Like it's very overwhelming.
It is overwhelming, but the thing about this kind of overwhelming, because not only is there an overload of information, there's an overload of symbolism, imagery, and metaphor that you have to deal with. So to deal with that, you can either write poetry or listen to music.
Or I could do the artistic endeavors that I've already been doing.
Exactly.
So just keep on doing the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But refine it. Listen to Mozart sometimes. He does incredible things with just notes. Just notes. I mean, if you listen to Mozart's music, it's incredible. Bach is very good to listen to, too. He's very structured. Mozart is more nuanced. But this is what happens as you mature. As we all mature, we learn to play with our abilities in a more fun way.
Okay.
Well, so astrology is a tool, right? So we're telling you you're in your Saturn return. An astrologer told you it's happening. Now it's been brought to your conscious awareness that that's happening, right? Saturn's met in the same spot in the sky as when you were born. We've told you a little bit about what that means. And I wouldn't stress too much about it. It's happening. We just told you what the weather is, right? So now we told you this. It's not like, oh, wow, I talked to an astrologer. It's fixed now. Yeah. It's like, no. It's just in a lot of ways, I find when I talk to clients or do readings and things, it's not telling them new things necessarily. It's more affirming. It's things you kind of know or you can already feel and you can sense. And you come to the astrologer because you're like, what the hell is happening? And you're, Saturn return. That's hard.
So like a psychologist, like it's just helped me put my finger on that thing that I was feeling around but didn't have. Sort
of. Or, we're all subject to society's conditioning. And so maybe we've picked up things along the way. We think we should be a certain way, but it doesn't resonate with what we actually are, what we're actually working with. And it can be really affirming to be like, no, you're not supposed to work in fashion. You're supposed to be in healing work because you have so much Taurus energy. In the 6th house, you're supposed to be serving others by using touch and these kinds of things. It's like, I always wanted to do that, but my mom told me if I didn't go study, bioengineering, I would have a terrible life. And so it can help you kind of get back on your right path.
All right. Well, before we wrap up, what else do I need to know about the path that I'm currently on? Like what else could you guys tell me from looking at my chart that I could focus on in my path besides just observing and taking in more tranquility?
Well, your path isn't paved.
I know that. I know I have free will. Yeah. But what does the stars say?
Well, the star says you have free will.
I'm going to punch a fucking star in the face. I swear to God.
So what your chart says to me is that there is absolutely nothing set for you. There is nothing, quote, destined. What's there is what you want to create with what you've got. That's your destiny. So how do you use all the tools that you've got? How do you get more in touch with your energies? How do you experience them in a new and different way? How do you get closer to yourself as who you really are? How do you do what? What did Plato say? An unexamined life is not worth living. So how do you examine what's going on in your system? Now consider this system. It's a bundle of tools or whatever, dishes. How are you going to set the table? How are you going to move things around? But you have to examine how those things are playing in your own system. That's how, you actually develop.
So I don't have like a set destiny. Some people may, but my chart is saying that I do not, as much as I just need to do the things I love.
I would say the Saturn return is a really predominant thing that's happening for you now. That's for everyone that hits that age, 28 to 30. So you're going to feel that a lot. And I would say you're going to be met with challenges. You're going to be given Saturn homework, right? He's going to throw something at you that makes you question something about yourself. And so then it's up to you. Do I choose to do the work, cut out the time and do the homework, grow, evolve, or do I avoid it and try and run away from it, and then Saturn will get me in 7 years when he squares the Saturn, right? So it's just cycles. You get to choose what to do, but that's what's happening. That's the climate. That's what you're working with now. So I would say do the homework so that you can get the reward after the 3 years when he moves on into the next sign.
So establish more structures in my life.
See what part of your life needs more structure.
Okay.
Don't just establish structures willy-nilly, although it's good to have structures. But look at your life and see where more structure would help.
Okay.
It's something to do with establishing yourself, your own identity.
Yeah, there are definitely some projects I'm working on that could use more structure, more of an outline for me to follow on a month-to-month basis, or even on a week-to-week. There are definitely, because I take on a lot of things and a lot of projects, often more than I realize I have the capacity for.
That's
a lot of that fire stuff too. It's the excitement of the new thing, right?
But it's also the Sagittarius stuff. More. Sagittarius wants more big expansion. Yeah. Let's not just order, 3 dishes for the table. Let's order 7 dishes for the table.
And then share them. And then make a game out of it.
Exactly. So my teacher said, his teacher said that Jupiter, who rules Sagittarius and in your moon and your rising sign, is actually really known as the big bozo. Now,
that I am 6'2", so that's pretty right. Apropos.
So the thing about Jupiter is he's your uncle. You cannot help but love him.
Yeah,
he's
Uncle Jupy.
Well, Joe Biden. And everybody loves Uncle Joe, right? But he goes on and he talks and he says things that come out of his mouth that are strange, but you love him because he's real. He's honest. He's natural. There's no guile about him. And that's one of the beautiful things about, Jupiter, right? You be jovial.
I like to think of Jupiter as like the Santa Claus or like the Oprah of the charts. Like comes through and he's like, one for you and one for you. Joy, abundance, expansion. And that's your planetary ruler. So you look to the planet that rules your rising sign. And it's kind of this overarching umbrella theme to your chart. And for you, that's Jupiter, the Oprah zodiac. And you have it in the 5th house of creativity. So your creative self-expression is a big part of who you are. And that's a big part of what you're refining as well. But that's interesting too, right? Because just like Saturn and Uranus, the teacher and the rebel come together, your ruler is Jupiter expansion, and you're going through this really Saturnian time, which is refining, honing it in. So you're naturally very...
all over the place?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And so it's learning to, create more of a container for all that joy and all these things you want to do, learning to refine that and focus it more. Maybe follow through with the first thing before starting the next.
Okay.
If you look at the symbol of Saturn and the symbol of Jupiter, they're actually inverses of each other. Jupiter has this cup above the cross being manifestation in the physical world. And so the cup of receptivity, if you will, is above.
Right, it's
above the world.
An open cup.
Open cup. Whereas Saturn has its cup downward, below the cross, showing that the cross shall rule. You are ruled and you will be nailed to the cross. But what happens is that they are really, in many ways, polar opposites, and one can't exist without the other. One of the things that astrology does really beautifully is put to death the myth of duality, because the entire construct of the zodiac is built on polarities. Aries, Libra.
Well, wait. If you're saying it's putting to death duality.
Yeah, by showing you how to handle the unity.
Oh, so by embracing both sides of it.
Yeah,
I'm not one or the other, I am both.
Right. You cannot be an
like
Aries.
a yin-yang.
Yes, it is. You cannot be an Aries without the existence of Libra. And since everybody has all 12 signs, not necessarily the same emphasis, you have to be able to understand that I implies thou, right? Aries, I, thou, Libra. And the whole zodiac is built on the balancing of the apparent duality. So Aries is ruled by Mars, Libra is ruled by Venus. Opposite energies, opposite planets. Until you get into the symbolism of the planets. I'm going to give you more information so that you won't be able to sleep tonight.
I mean, there's so much information right now, and it's hard for me to process it. I guess my final question is, when will I find true love?
Oh, well, you have Venus in Gemini. It's either you learn how to contain that Venus in Gemini, or you'll be flitting from one to another for the rest of your life.
And what does that mean in language?
Learn constancy.
So he's looking at the seventh house, and the seventh house is ruled by Gemini, and that's where your Venus is, which rules love and partnership and all of that, and she's in the sign of Gemini. And so Gemini is like the social butterfly, right? It's like flits around, it gets bored pretty quick, and so there's an element of maybe learning that your partner can't be all things to you. If you have a best friend that you go to for certain things, or a counselor that you go to, the partner can't be all things. It's the duality of relating to others.
And the ruler of the seventh house, Mercury, which rules Gemini, is in Aries, which tends to get excited and move from place to place quickly.
So
you have to learn how to balance.
So balance my life more, lean on friends more.
Yes, and learn that not everything that glitters is gold.
Are you making a pun about my name? Or
if you want to take it that way, that's fine.
I don't know how to take anything. All right. Okay, this has been both illuminating and
frustrating?
Yes, and clouding. But if we start with me at a 3, I find this all very interesting. I know you say it is not a science, but it feels like it has like a lot of the structure of a science.
The elements are there.
Yeah. I like the symbolism a lot. Okay. If we start with me at a 3, with a big old grain of salt, like with like a big, like a salt shaker right there. I think I'm now at a +1. I'm intrigued. I'm interested. I don't know how much. Maybe it's more than a +1 because like I'm hesitant to put a lot of stock in astrology. But because like I feel like everybody goes through a defining moment at 14 or 7 and stuff like that. Like that's or roughly around there. Like that feels like a very, very a wide net that catches everybody. But a lot of the other stuff that you guys have made observations about is true. I have put too much of myself into partners in the past. So okay, I can, and the truth is, yeah, I do need to slow down a little bit and build up more structures of the various projects and things I work on, rather than just keep them like, go, great, this is a great idea, fun, now time, no, next. Like that's not as helpful, and it's not getting me to where I want to be. All right, you know what? I'll say I'm at a +2.
What's the highest number you can get?
+10.
Yeah, well, I think you're looking at the wrong base. It's either base 10 or base something else, because everybody has a cycle. We just talked about your specific cycle. So everybody does go through 7, 14, 21, 28, whatever. Everybody goes through those cycles. But we were right on the nail with your cycle.
I know, but well, I mean, but isn't that, I feel like with the sun signs, when it comes to like reading your horoscope in the newspaper, I feel like those can be very general.
Mm-hmm. They're only good for starting fires and fireplaces.
Yeah, and I love fire, as we found. I feel like some of these things could apply to a lot of people. Some of these were very specific and close to home.
We charge for readings. We were just giving you a general discussion here.
Thank you.
Well, and we're, looking at highlights.
Yeah.
So when you come for a full reading, we're synthesizing everything. There are lots of things we didn't get to talk about. And there's more that you could get into even with the relationship stuff. And we layer all kinds of things. Like we look at the eclipses, which are supercharged, times during the year, and where they're activating your chart, because that's a big focal point. And so there's a lot more layers, but we're trying to keep it digestible for the listener.
This was trying to keep it digestible?
Well, that's what I mean. It's very cerebral. It's a lot of information to take in.
Manja.
It does feel very heady. It feels a little bit like homework. But there's some fun in this. Mm-hmm. Like, yeah, I'll say I'm at a +2. Like, this is
cool. Awesome.
It's delightful. I can enjoy it without putting all of my stock in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the study of possibility, right? Like, we're not predicting the future. We're giving you the alchemy of what's happening, and then you do what you will with that.
That's your free will.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Yeah, I'm going to be thinking on this for a while.
You're welcome.
Well, learn to be more tranquil, and you'll think less. You'll just experience better.
Fuck. Damn, Clark. Do you guys have anything to plug?
Oh, well, if you want to talk to me and set up something, my email is clarkastillman, one word, @gmail.com.
Awesome. And how about you, Courtney?
I do mini reading events twice a month. I have 2 residencies. One's at a place called Two Saints in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, and the other is at Myths of Creation in Williamsburg. So if you're curious, those are really fun for a little bite size, kind of like we did today. But I offer full readings as well, and you can find me at Courtney at vibrantsoulostrology.com or on Instagram and Facebook at Vibrant Soul Astrology.
Awesome. I'm feeling a little bit more tranquil now. But I don't know if that's exhaustion from my brain or if we've tapped into something here.
Ooh, the tap in. We got him, Clark.
Don't set the hook just yet. Let him keep nibbling.
Yeah, simmer.
Yeah.
Oh, my brain is melting. To make room for more brain, as Clark said. I would like to plug You Are Not Alone, an uplifting show about depression every month at the Magnet Theater. The next one is Thursday, April 12th at 8:30. And why don't you come to the Magnet Theater that day, that Thursday at 5:30 for The Mixer, which I host with the cast of You're Not Alone every Thursday at 5:30/6 p.m. I feel like my brain just got its ass kicked.
No. You had a very, very vigorous massage.
Ooh, actually, yeah, that does fit. I feel like my brain was massaged. My brain got a shiatsu. Clark, Courtney, thank you guys so much for joining me. And for all of you listening, keep on minding the stars. Yeah, that's it. All right, goodbye.